I only use, or I use just a little dab of glue each time because this does dry so quickly. So if you think about just adding maybe a dime or a little bit less than a dime.
One of the questions I get a lot from customers is there a difference between glues? And I can honestly tell you that in, my creating a lily the other day, I felt that there was an extraordinary difference in the viscosity of this one. It's much thicker, so it made it really, really easy to use. And so I cannot tell you how appreciative I am that you have done all that research to make sure that the glue I'm going to use after, the life that you put into these petals, that it's that it's going to work.
And hold up for you when you give. Because let's face it, we give these as gifts. These are something to be treasured by family members. There is a term when we're whipping egg whites in baking, and we always say when you turn it upside down and the egg whites don't fall out on your head, that that you've created the right volume to them. And that's what I get with the glue. I turn it upside down, nothing drips. I can hold it this way for 10 minutes. It will not drip. That's the kind of viscosity it has, and that's what I want. Now, using the tip of your tweezer, I like to hold the calyx or the snowflake in place, and I'm going to dip the end of the petal into the glue and place it right on one of those projections. And what I'm going to do is just do like what I call a little friction rub, but you can see it's standing up already. And I'll do that with each one once I've formed them all. I'll do 3 around, and then I'll go back and do the 3 in between. So we have one here that I've taken to the point of adding the 6 petals. I've colored them all, and I've done the 3 on the outside, and then coming in just a little bit closer in, I've added 3 more. Now, just so I know that this flower is going to stand up the way I want it to, here's another little trick. I buy my large eggs in a plastic container. What can I say? I think they're I think they're the purpose.
Genius.
Yeah, purpose of holding these up. But as you put your petals in, place them into these trays and just push down, and that's where I let them dry for about, I'd say, at least 30 minutes, because then you have a shape that looks like a lily. It's not opened out and flat. It actually stands up like your lily. So these little tricks that I'm going to pass on to you, I wouldn't use, you could use the styrofoam. Don't use the paper or the cardboard egg cartons, because your glue, if you've leaked any on the bottom, you will tend to, it'll stick to it and you'll pull apart. The plastic and the styrofoam work the best, and it's phenomenal. I use this for roses and pansies, and it's really what gets my flowers to set up, especially when I've built them petal by petal. So the next thing we're going to do is, well, I should have mentioned to you, because we also, not only did we start with white petals, we started with a white calyx. And then we did the shading with the Copics. Because if you like a paper and it does what you want it to do, why should you have to look through a stash and find something green when you've got the capability of coloring it green? And that's what I've done using the Copics. If we just put it down, it doesn't take any time at all. This is what gives us our green. And this isn't going to show per se, but it will. So, I mean, you wouldn't want to leave it white. You would want to color it, but adding some color to it and then blending. This might not be as important as your leaves, because we will color them as well. But adding color to your calyx is as simple as that, and you've got a nice, and you've used the same paper that you know has the nice weight. This is an 80-pound paper, which, if anybody knows me, they know I only use the Copics, or I use cardstocks. Or the other thing I didn't mention is that I'm going to color the stamen. That's done. Is that the lighter? Oh, this one. So I've used a Copic, It was this one here
It
to
is
start?
this one,
Okay.
yeah.
I've used Copic YG00, and on your mat, color out. You can color to the balls, but we're going to color the little projections on the end a different color. So just run your pen out so you've colored it completely. And you have to do it on both sides on this, where sometimes it's not so important on the calyx, because I'm going to use that to glue down to the box, so it doesn't need to really be colored underneath. But this will, because you'll see it from all sides. So if we take and we color it, and then we go back and use the color here I'm using is the YR14, and I'm going to go over and shade the ends, and it does two things. I will add a product called Flower Soft on the ends, because it adds a little bit of texture and gives that stamen the look that it needs. But just to give it an undertone of what the color should be on the ends, I've added it. And you can only get this by starting with your white paper, that you get the two tones the way it should be. Now you could simply add this to if you didn't have the Flower Soft, but I'm going to show you what the Flower Soft does do for this. Now I'll place this back on the mat, and we're going to do another technique using the small end of the stylus. We're going to do what's called cupping. And cupping is nothing more than using your pen at a 90-degree angle, perpendicular to your piece you're doing, and pressing down on it. All of a sudden it's lifted up and cupped. But I'm going to take that a little further, because that's open, and I want to create a stamen that's closed. So using a toothpick, take a little dab of glue and place right in the center, and using your fingertips, just go ahead and start forming it and pressing it together. Now another little trick that I use, and this is something you can build at home, it's nothing that you can buy, it's taking a 3-inch styrofoam ball, and I put it onto a little base, and I poked some holes in it. Now I put my stamens in there, and so after about 5 minutes, that's what you get. It's now closed permanently, it's set. Just as we did with the egg carton to set the petals, I've set the stamen.
Susan, I'm just going to interject something here. One of the things I appreciate so much about your directions is your words that you've come up with. The stirring, the cupping. If you hear anybody else using them in the industry, Susan is the one who came up with them, and it has made this such an easy art form to relate to and to understand. So thank you for bringing that to us.
Well, they were something that I thought it would be easy to I mean, they say what they do. I mean, when I say cupping, you'll get in a picture in your head that piece has formed a cup, or if it's pinched, you know what pinching looks like, or bending. But those are little things that all help make these the flowers that I've come up with. So now that we've got the flower set, and it's nicely set up, we can take our stamen. And I'm going to add, this is a product that came out a few years ago, and I happened, when I was at the show walking around, Flower Soft was something that was being added to cards and adding some texture to it. I see it as being that final little piece of making your flowers look as natural as possible. You know, it's that little pollen that is on the end, and as anybody who knows and loves lilies will say, that's the stuff that stains my tablecloth. Well, but it's the stuff that makes your flowers look like flowers. So now I've got a closed stamen. I'm going to take the toothpick with the glue and kind of just open up some of those little areas. And all I'm going to do is like do a brushing of the glue. You don't have to be precise. You don't have to even catch each one, because that was the beauty of coloring the ends. You do show that some, maybe the pollen fell off, maybe a bee had come and taken that pollen. And then I've put a little bit of Flower Soft, and I've actually mixed 3 colors here to give the natural look of the pollen. I've used toffee, I've used earth, and then I've used a little bit of russet, and mixed them together to give that dimension or detail to your flowers. And all I'm doing is dipping in and adding.
That's one of the beauties too. You can always add. You can
take it away.
You
can
take some away by just pulling it off with your finger.
But you can see the difference now. Look at one that's plain, which is perfectly fine, and if you don't have the Flower Soft is good. But the Flower Soft with the 3 colors and the texture adds that much more to your flower. This way.
There we go.
So now that we've got that set, take your tweezers again and hold the top, one of the little top prongs. I'm going to dip the end into the glue. Let's see if I can bring it up here for you. And then just set it right into the flower. And that's what does it. Your flower's complete except for the leaves. And actually I say no flower's complete without the leaves. And we'll put it right back to set into our dish till it's ready to go.
Fantastic.
So now we've got flowers setting and drying. Let's turn our focus to the box that Ellen decorated so pretty for us. This beautiful green paper, it just says springtime to me. You've noticed there's a little dark round globe on top here. I've added a little bit of styrofoam, so when I place my flowers, I'm going to get height, so it'll taper down. It's as if you give it a little boost. That's a little mound of, say, dirt or moss here in the northwest. But I've used a 1.5 inch styrofoam ball that I've sliced in half, and I've cut a round piece of, this is mulberry paper that you can buy in sheets. Now you could just paint this with some gesso too. The reason why you want to put some kind of covering on your styrofoam is because it's so porous. And if I put glue right on top of this or tried to place my flowers, they take a long time to dry, and you'd be adding tons of glue because it'll just soak into that styrofoam. So I choose to cover mine, but like I said, if you have gesso, I'm simply spinning it around in a glob of glue, and then I place it onto the little circle that I've created, and then I put more glue around the edges, and I'm just going to bring that circle up and around and cover it, and that's all you need to do. Now you've created the perfect work surface for the flowers to stick to. So we've added that, and you notice these other little things hanging down. What I've decided to do is create an illusion of a vine hanging down, and I've used some cloth covered, I call this thread because it does come on a spool and it is very pliable. But I took my tweezers and poked a couple of holes into that styrofoam, dip the end and put it into it, so I know that it's really going to lock in there and it's not going to come out later.